Hi, my name is Ian Smiley, and I'm the caretaker here at Prince Eric Hall. I'm also the Public Awareness Ministry Coordinator of the Arcadia Congregational Church, who happen to own Prince Eric Hall. It's a great house, great venue. Uh, as some of you may or may not know, the house was built in the 1920s for the Prince of Denmark, hence the name Prince Eric Hall. So I'm the caretaker here. I'm the guy that does all those things that need to get done. Look at that. Well, I'm glad to see that the event that was here this evening thought that the piece of furniture was comfortable and that it might look good back here, because it does. But it doesn't belong back here, and unfortunately it can't stay here, so someone's got to move it back. For several reasons. One, it's too comfortable for somebody to jump my wall and plug in an extension cord and charge up their cell phone and sit here and watch Netflix all night on free wireless. Two, the weather's going to damage it. Three, it doesn't belong here. Anyway, so I'll figure that out later. But as I'm going to walk around, I figured I better start telling my story here. I'm already 1 minute and 40 seconds into this. I've only got 10 minutes. Because what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to attempt to do a little YouTube channel. I'm going to try to post video blogs based upon things that are happening to me in my life. There's Paul, who happens to be the topic of today's story. How Paul came here. Oh, it's an amazing little story, and it started about 4 years ago. The story began in this garden, and there was a whole lot of love that came here. A whole lot of love. And it was that unconditional love that was focused on being in the moment and being there, and everyone being unconditional, that a lot of things came together. At that time, 4 years ago, this lovely tent, this 40 by 60 foot tent, had to go. The city had come down. The city had finally seen that it had been up for a couple of years, and they came to us and they said, no, you must file for a conditional use permit if you wish this to stay up, and it must become a permanent structure and become a part of the property itself. Nobody wanted to deal with it. Everybody was ready to throw their hands up and say, we can't. Well, at that moment, so much love was in the room, I should say in the space, sharing that space. There were a couple of names over there. One was Jim Avedikian. Second was me. Third was legendary porn icon Jeff Palmer. There are quite a few other characters, and I say characters because this is life. We're all cast to characters. I'm just casting characters to be themselves. So these three people came together out of unconditional love. My friend Jim called me up and said, Ian, I have somebody that he has a need. He's in crisis. He has nowhere to go. He's on the streets. He needs some help. And we don't want to give him money because he can't. That's part of the problem, is he takes the money and he won't spend it on the help that he needs. He has many issues, but his biggest one is that most of the social services had already gone through his case, and it was going to be much harder to place him than it would have been for somebody else just up the street. Come on, Paul. Now remember, the topic, the point of this whole story is, how did Paul come to be here? I get asked that a lot too. How did I get here? And, well, back to Paul. So my friend Jim called me up and he said, can you help? And I didn't even think twice about it. I had my mother's car. I had gas. And of course, Jim, I can help. Got in the car and on my way I went, speeding down the highway. Oh, I didn't speed. I flew. Now, when I get there, that's when I'm told that I'm looking for Jeff Palmer. Now, you might not know who Jeff Palmer is, but in the 90s, Jeff Palmer was an icon. He was just, he had eyes that for days, he had a body. He was, uh, he was the it guy, everybody. This guy took his porn status into he was not just a porn star, he was a 90s, and he became a 90s icon, hanging out with celebrities, and this guy had the life. He was a rock star. So I was a little taken back because I began my career in the adult entertainment industry in the 90s. Back in the early 90s, mid 90s, I went to work at Renegade Releasing. So Jeff and I both kind of began our careers at the same time. Now, we only ran into each other occasionally, and I'm going to say like maybe twice. Once would have been in an office when he was meeting somebody, probably Jefferson's office. And I think it was, yeah. And the other one was at a porn awards party. Excuse me. Not bothering you. Let's see. So I'm like a little shocked. I'm in West Hollywood, and I'm looking to pick up somebody that's in crisis, and from across the parking lot, I just see this so skinny, so small. I mean, just like thin and bones, bleached blonde hair that was just so bleached it was. And he comes walking towards me, and that was it. I was like, wow. And he was in clear crisis. He was. Well, I don't want to go into the details of his personal confidential moments, but I know that he came here. I brought him here. When he came here, he thought he'd been picked up by angels because he was in such a desperate need. He was clearly a little delusional. So yeah, I could imagine. I remember imagining how it must have felt to be him, to be in his headspace, and to be picked up by somebody, stranger, and then he arrives at a church, and he's there for 30 days in this mansion that was built for the Prince of Denmark, Danish royalty we were. And I took care of this guy for 30 days while we found him a place to be. Actually, in the end, to tell the God's honest truth, he never made it to that moment where he was able to take hold of resources or take hold of a place or get placement, because he left here on his own accord. He couldn't stay anymore. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't. He needed to be doing what he wanted to do. So he did it. But while I was here, it was a moment where it was just unreal to have to be in that moment and to be so there unconditionally to this guy to help him. Because I got to tell you, from the moment he walked in the door, he was a disaster. It was not easy. I was awake 24/7. I was a nursemaid. I was a bedmaid. I was everything that needed to be done and attended to this guy's needs, who clearly was losing it. So I held it together for him, and it was tough. And I did it because I was asked, because he needed it, And I put that forward, and I did it. Well, towards the end of his 30 days here, I believe his statement was, "You're evil just like your mother." Which that was kind of like the last straw for me. I went through, cigarette butts and all sorts of nightmares, but for me, that was it. That's it. Jeff, you need to make a decision. Like, that's it, done. And, that night, yeah, the conversation continued. I didn't understand why I needed to continue to, be this for him when he wasn't respecting just the simplest of things. And he said, "I wished I had a little golden dog to love and to hold." I didn't love him. Everybody was against him. I mean, within 30 days, here's somebody that I'd never met, and technically, and I'd given so much to care for, and he was arguing with me about. It was just unreal. But that night, I wish I had a little golden dog to love and to hold. The very next morning, part of the program was that Jeff had to visit some AA meetings and go. Just nobody said he needed to participate, but at least needed to make an effort to change, to do something. You have to do something, and if you have to just go there, that was the one thing. So there we go, walking down the street. It's about a mile and a half. And when we get there, there was Paul, chained up on his little chain. It wasn't a leash. It's like a little chain, little mini little chain. And looking up at me was this little golden dog. Paul, where are you? And I just looked at Paul, and I thought, wow, that was fast, God. I mean, there was no other way to explain. There really wasn't, and there really isn't a way other than to say that the divine hand of inspiration, and it was there, and it was in the moment that Paul came to live here. I mean, I was so taken back, and I just remember going down and just scratching his little ears and just seeing his little face, and just the way he looked up. He was so quiet. And the woman began to tell me her story. And her story was that she had a serious alcohol substance abuse problem, and she had lost her living arrangements, and she had to go stay with her daughter and her daughter's family. And she was forced to get rid of her 4 other children. Paul was the last one. And she said that he's been living in the garage at a friend's place. So she goes over there every day and she takes him out. And they walk. And she comes to these meetings. At the time, I had the cat colony problem going on in the back, so there was 100 million cats floating around here. It was kind of interesting that summer. And I said, I know a place where there's a lot of garden, and they need help from a little guy like him to come chase these cats. And I knew that the woman did not want to say yes to anything. She didn't want to let go, and I don't blame her. I said, but here's my address. It's change your mind, and why don't you bring Paul down and check out the place? The very next day she did, and she left Paul here with me to care for him. Well, that day when Paul came, they left. Paul was here. I don't remember being anything special, but I remember putting him in the room. I didn't know what I was going to tell Judy. Judy is the church secretary here. She runs the office. She runs the place from 9 to 2. And I didn't want to tell Judy about it, because I knew that Judy would be very upset about an animal being in the house with all the carpet that was in the house. Back then, the house was full of deep blue, nasty carpet from the 80s that was still around. And I didn't want to tell her just yet. I figured I had to think about that. So Paul was in the room. I walk up to the front office here. See with this flag behind me there. And I see that's Eddie back there. Eddie's another story for another time, because I'm already running 4 minutes late into this one. Be quiet, Eddie. Paul. So Paul's in my office in there, the room, and I go walking to the front. I'm gonna turn the camera around so you can see. Okay, so I'm over there talking to Judy. Now I'm faced her, and she's over my shoulder, and she looks over my shoulder, and she turns around over to my side. She looks past me, And she said, Ian, is that a dog in your window? And I look at her and I'm like, and I kind of turn around. There was Paul standing in the friggin' window. I swear to you, I have pictures of it because at the time I never went anywhere without my camera. And this was before your cell phone was your camera, 4 years ago. So yeah, I took pictures of Paul standing in the window. And, all I could think of was, how much is that doggy in the window? The one with a cute waggly tail. That is how Paul came to be here. That was Paul's first day. And since the day that Paul has been here, he has been an absolute blessing in my life because he's been there for me at every step of the way. I wake up in the morning and there's Paul. Let's go. Everywhere I go, Paul's right behind me, looking up at me. Everywhere I go. Paul loves to go to church. Paul has more friends in church than I do. Let me tell you. Paul has people bring him bags of treats. Paul walks through the pews at church, and Paul seems to find always the one who needs just a little love in their eyes, someone to sit and listen to them for a moment. There's Paul, right underfoot, ready when somebody needs him. He's his own person. I don't. People say, "Oh, you're his owner." No, I'm his human, because Paul rescued me. Don't get that twisted. Paul came here when somebody said out loud, "I wish I had a little golden dog to love and to hold." Paul. And here he is. Anyway. So that's 17 minutes. That's a long story. That's how Paul came here. 3 people focused on unconditional love, doing the right thing in the right way for the right reasons, doing it in the right place, surrounded by unconditional love. That was the title of the picture that I took with Jeff. That's the one that you would see on my Facebook page, or maybe you've seen it somewhere. It's one of the few pictures that I did release of the 30 days that we spent here. And I took a lot of pictures. I got to tell you, a lot of time spent with Jeff was about wanting to make his story matter so that someone else didn't make the same mistakes. He was very consciously aware of where he put himself, and he was happy with who he was. I got to give you that. He really, truly was. There was no mistake in who Jeff Palmer was, why we loved him. But let me tell you, he wanted to, in the 30 days that he had the sobriety here, he slowly came back to life. And there was something to be said about wanting to share the story of what was happening. And so that is why I've chosen to share with you today the story of how Paul came here. Because everybody that comes here, Paul's usually the first thing that they meet. Paul is the first contact usually when somebody just walks on to campus and somebody's a guest or a visitor. I have to keep a close eye on him because Paul, he definitely does like to, he's a very social butterfly. And I think that he may have just wandered off. Oh, look at that. See, he does that to me too. I'll go wandering around, but Paul, where are you? Paul. He was right there. I mean, right there. How many times, Paul, have we put you in a room, or actually, we've opened the door to a room, like the pastor's study, and literally, you close the door, walk in, you close the door behind you, and you walk into the office there, and you don't notice that Paul actually went in there. He moved as lightning fast, went into that room. You didn't see him before you walked, opened the door, closed it, and walked in. I've ran around this property screaming and yelling for an hour. Paul, where the hell are you, Paul? The entire time he was right there. Anyway. All right, Paul. So what are we going to do now? I think we're going to have to go take that furniture back And I think I have to go do something with the power back there because somebody keeps touching my power and they don't know what they're doing. So the fountain got turned off. And one of the... If you don't know what you're doing, don't mess with it. Seriously, I do not understand why people think that, oh, they will just flip switches here and there and do this and do that. And, meanwhile, sprinklers get turned off, water dies because, well, the grass dies because, somebody turned the power off on it and it automatically resets itself. People, if you don't know what you're doing, leave it alone. So anyway, I gotta go fix that, put that furniture back, and probably watch this video. Alright. Oh, yeah. I want to say Happy Memorial Day. And I say really, Memorial Day is really about remembering those who sacrificed to get to where we are today. War meant you lost your life. People went to war and they saw things and they were in moments that we will never ever can imagine. And war these days is usually comes from above in a form you don't see it happening to you, and somebody just pushes a button, so it really isn't the same. So when we think about Memorial Day, we really need to remind ourselves that Memorial Day is about those who fought and died, gave their lives for, and who were there, and who witnessed things that we need to remember their sacrifice. And so that's what today is all about, Memorial Day. So, all right, I'm going to end this 21-minute YouTube vlog. I'm sure they'll get shorter as time goes on. But I want to say thank you for joining me. I want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity in which to share these stories with you. I hope that you've enjoyed my story about Paul. It definitely is an interesting story. And I'm sure there's a lot of other details that I forgot to mention. I think I really forgot that we could have gone deep into the tent and having to go through the experience with the city of Arcadia to go ahead and get that conditional use permit. But obviously, as you can see, we did get it. We went and we have the conditional use permit. So that was another wonderful miracle that's happened in the last 4 years since Paul came here. And it's been 4 years now. It's like it's this time, it's Pentecost. It's when the Spirit is moving through us and speaking to us, and in the wind, and everything that we see and everything that surrounds us. There is a living God, and I wish that more people took time to pay attention to the world around them. If they could just turn off their electronics for a moment and to remember that we are a part of this natural world. We are not independent of this natural world. We are very much a part of something that is greater than ourselves. And I know that's hard for some people to want to think about in this world where it's all about identity, identity, identity. Yes, we all have an identity. However, we are all the same. So rainbows can only exist where there is light. Remember, be the light. So that's what that rainbow represents, a separation of light to me. Anyway, thank you very much. Again, my name is Ian Smiley. I am the lady of the house. This is the house, and I hope you'll stick around for my next entry. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to talk about next, but there's plenty to talk about. So join me. Subscribe. Become a member of the House of Legends. Right, Eddie? Eddie's an interesting story too. We'll save Eddie for another day. Bye.